Live from a NASCAR bunker in Kyle's parents' basement, it's Turn the Radio Off with Mike Parsons and Kyle Bauer.
Become a fan at Facebook.com/TTRO Show. Follow along on Twitter.com/TTRO Show. Or just listen right now. It's Turn the Radio Off.
All right, we're back. It's been a while. But not as long as it's been since the last episode of The Weigh-In. So to our fan base who stuck with us, if you're listening, Paul, thank you for your patience. It's good to be back. And, of course, Kyle, we went to bed on, see, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even remember how to turn off the damn theme song.
Theme song's still going? I still don't have headphones,
right.
So I want to know.
Picking up right where we left off. Well, on Friday night, we all went to bed with the news that Muhammad Ali was in the hospital and not doing too well. And probably the least shocking death in recent history. Woke up on Saturday morning to find that he has passed away. And all weekend, I've been watching the coverage. I've been listening to the coverage. And most of it was from people who were around when Muhammad Ali was still fighting. And when you have a figure of the magnitude of Muhammad Ali, he's a lot of things to a lot of people, right? To the people who grew up watching him in his prime, he was a great boxer, great entertainer, great trash talker. Some people call him a great civil rights activist. Others call him a draft dodger. But, I started thinking, okay, I was born in 1984. You were born in what, 1986?
87.
87. So we were born a good few years after Muhammad Ali's fighting career was over and around the time that he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I started thinking, okay, so what was Muhammad Ali to our generation? For the most part, our relationship with Muhammad Ali, our exposure was through old videos and file footage. And to our dads who grew up in the 50s and the 60s, he is what we say he was a transformative cultural figure. And I remember being young, hearing the term float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and asking my dad what it meant. And he explained to me. My dad was one of those dads where if you asked him a question, he would give you the entire history, kind of like you, Kyle. Maybe that's why I like you so much. So he gave me the entire history of Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali, and then I would start seeing videos of him on TV, talking trash better than any pro wrestler at the time or since, except for maybe The Rock back when he was People's Champion. And then I remember seeing a thing on him on the news where this brash, seemingly invincible boxing champion was quiet and shaking and having a hard time walking without the assistance of a caretaker and loved one. And so I asked my dad, hey, you know what, Muhammad Ali, what's wrong with him? And he told me he had Parkinson's, and said Parkinson's probably was brought on by injuries sustained in the boxing ring. And to me, personally, Muhammad Ali was sort of a symbol of Father Time being undefeated. No matter how big and bad you were, no one's invincible. And to me, he's always been a symbol of our own fragility as human beings.
And Mike, my first thought when I found out I found out in New Orleans, where I was down on vacation, and that coincidentally was the last place that Muhammad Ali won a title when he defeated Leon Spinks in a rematch to get his title back, and I think it was 1978, I believe. And anyway, my first thought was 1974. He's been sick for a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks probably saw this coming. I mean, especially if you have seen any pictures of him in the past couple of years. He looked like he was in his 90s.
Yeah, on NBC Nightly News, Lester Holt did actually a nice piece on the last photos of Muhammad Ali. And yeah, he was thin, he was gaunt. His eyes look like they look like the eyes of a blind man.
And I still remember thinking, 74 years old. You know, like, I'm walking down Bourbon Street right now, and there's a lot of 74-year-olds on Bourbon Street. Seriously, there are. There are a lot of people in their 70s who are vacationing, who are enjoying their lives, enjoying retirement. It seems like people are aging slower and slower these days. And 74, you still feel like there's another good 5, 6, 7, 10, maybe even 20,
right.
20 years left. Look at Paul McCartney. I saw him in October put on a 3-hour show at Joe Louis Arena, and he was dancing on stage, playing the hell out of his piano and guitar, and you would have thought that he was still in his 40s. So that's what 74 was to one legend. That's what 74 was to Muhammad Ali, another legend. And it's really sad because you look at those parallels and you feel like Muhammad was robbed of time, even though, again, he's been sick for 30 years. He had been since he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's.
I think 1983 he was officially diagnosed.
Yeah, so, I mean, over 30 years.
Right.
Still, it feels like he was robbed of more time. And the way I look at Ali is glowingly. I mean, I can't think personally of someone who, even though he had retired, I think about 5 years before I was born.
Right.
I still can't think of another figure in my life who was omnipresent. And I mean that in a way is that you always knew who Ali was. He was always somewhere in the back of your head. And for me as an athlete, for me personally, as someone who was never naturally gifted as an athlete, I always had to work a little bit harder. I always had to fight a little bit more for that spot on the team. And you draw inspiration from someone like Ali, who would come in just shooting his mouth off about beating Sonny Liston,
right,
about beating George Foreman, about beating Joe Frazier, and all of his other fights before and after that. And yeah, there was a certain point in his career where he became a favorite, almost to the point of exhaustion for everyone, that he was still trying to portray the underdog. But the point was, he made himself who he was, both in the ring and out of the ring, as the underdog. And there's nothing that this country, I think collectively as a culture, has appreciated or loved more than a good underdog story. Whether it was Rocky, who ironically was defeating Apollo Creed, who was loosely based on Muhammad Ali. That whole story was pretty much based on Muhammad Ali challenging Chuck Wepner, who was kind of a nobody boxcar fighter from Bayonne, New Jersey. You know, similar story that Stallone basically stole and turned into a $1 billion franchise based around him and Apollo Creed. But it's just the whole idea that you think to all the underdog stories that we love, Ali was really the first underdog story, and it stuck with everyone. And even though it didn't stick with everyone outside of the ring, I mean, there's still a lot of people who vilify him and resent him for what he said about white people, resent him for what he said about the Vietnam War and what he said about the civil rights movement. Still, the point was, when he had his title stripped, he hung in there and fought. When he was a conscientious objector, he hung in there and he fought. And when he was in the Thriller in Manila against Joe Frazier, or doing the rope-a-dope against George Foreman, he always hung in there and fought, and he pushed himself to extremes, and that's something you're never going to see an athlete or entertainer do again because there's too much on the line. Ali, he just didn't care.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the waves he made when he was a conscientious objector. I know I totally butchered that, but
conscientious.
Yeah. When he decided not to fight in Vietnam.
It's a hard word to say when you're nasally like us, and half of your
it's our Michigan accent.
Half of your words get jammed up your nose when you're trying to talk.
But how he was vilified at the time for not fighting in Vietnam. How he was vilified at the time for speaking out against white oppression. And how you mentioned that a lot of people still are resentful towards him for it. I have to say, my perception has been totally different. I've been seeing a lot of people who I thought would take that angle, all lauding Muhammad Ali and saying he was the greatest. And a lot of my super conservative friends who I thought would have a problem with him, quote-unquote, draft dodging, coming out and paying tribute to him.
That's good to hear.
And I think it just goes to show that sometimes in the present, if you're doing something that's very unpopular, that history will sometimes remember you fondly. Abraham Lincoln. I'm sure everyone hated that guy. At least one guy did, and he showed him at Ford Theater one night. But of course, this is an extreme example, but a nation was at war, and I'm sure that at least 50% of our nation hated Abraham Lincoln. And now, looking back, he's one of the most beloved historical figures. Now, obviously, Muhammad Ali wasn't at that magnitude, but, 40 years later, the people who I thought would be criticizing him for this are applauding him for standing up for civil rights. And it just makes me think, what if Breitbart.com or TheBlaze.com was around back in the 60s? Could you imagine going back and just reading the crap that they would write about this guy?
Well, they took their opportunity after he died.
Oh, really?
And they wrote a handful of articles just demonizing him for, well, as they call it, draft dodging. Right. And by the way, conscientious objector was a legal and constitutional way to not go to war. And that was something Ali practiced, and he did so on religious grounds. Ali, even though he didn't always put it in such eloquent or, I guess, politically correct terms, his whole point was, and I'm sure you've heard the sound bites enough before, but why should I go drop bombs on poor brown people on another continent when they won't even support my right to use the same bathrooms,
right?
Or support my right to start a business or get a loan, and and he made all these great points about equal rights. He's like, why do I have to go over and fight another country when you guys wouldn't even fight for me?
Right, exactly. And I think most people kind of began to see that through the prism of history because when you're attached from it and you're looking at it from 40 years in the future, you're detached from it, and you say, "Oh, you know what? He has a point. Segregation. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't want to go fight for a country that does that to me, especially when you don't know exactly why you're fighting that war."
And that's not to badmouth those who did go and serve.
Right.
And I think that's what anyone who doesn't understand. The difference is that Ali didn't want to see anyone go to war. He especially felt as a black man in a country that had not treated him fairly, he didn't need to go to war to fight for that country. But there were other black men who did, who answered the call. And there were other, obviously thousands who did and thousands who lost their lives. And I don't think Ali wanted to demean any of them. He was just saying from his standpoint, why should he? And also his religion, which was the main basis, and that gets forgotten, of his conscientious objection, was that, he was Muslim. And that as a Muslim, he was not supposed to go fight in that war. And that's what his basis was. And at that time, he was practicing his religious liberty. And right now, we have conservatives, some of which are dusting off the old draft-dodging ghosts. Well, I mean, technically, if you wanted to use your Christianity as grounds to not go fight in a war, you could, but Ali was trying to use his religion for good and to send a positive message, again, not in the most gentlest of tones, but to send a positive message to not commit violence. And, it's just a lot of folks felt that they should be doing otherwise.
Well, and if you look at what's going on right now in the sports landscape, there's two other respects that jump out at me where Muhammad Ali was ahead of his time. Number one, head injuries having to do with the sport you played in. Obviously, we talked earlier this segment about the Parkinson's and how it's a widely held and accepted belief that he developed and suffered those symptoms because of head blows that he received in the ring. And number two, branding yourself. And whether that was just Muhammad Ali being Muhammad Ali or he was self-aware, which sometimes when you watch some of these old tapes of him, you get a little hint of self-awareness and kind of becoming a phenomenon unto yourself, right? Boxing was the vehicle that drove the personality that was Muhammad Ali. And now if you watch these other quote-unquote combat sports, is boxing considered a combat sports, or the boxing elite scoff at that? Fighting sports.
Yeah, right.
Okay, fighting sports. The only people who become major superstars in these fighting sports are the trash talkers, are the brash personalities, from Muhammad Ali to Mike Tyson in the 90s to Ronda Rousey on to Conor McGregor now in the UFC.
Yeah, and Mayweather.
Right.
Even though he's a piece of garbage.
Right.
Still.
I mean, Oscar De La Hoya. He was the biggest boxer. He had his turn as the biggest boxing star in the world. He wasn't that big of a personality. So he was widely regarded as a great boxer in his weight class, but he never really kind of got over that hump. And that's because he didn't have the brashness, he didn't have the charisma of a Mike Tyson and a Muhammad Ali.
And ironically, now he's a promoter. But then again, I look at the state that boxing is in, so maybe that says something about it. And Mike, that's another thing that as I got older, I came to appreciate all the sacrifices he made outside of the ring, his bravery. And in the way he truly stood up for what he believed in. You want to watch a surreal video. I don't have the title of it in front of me. Maybe I could pull it up on my phone real quick. But I was sent a YouTube clip where he is literally, and I don't know what kind of production this is, probably one Ali put on himself, actually, where he is sitting in a ring, in a tiny little boxing ring, sitting in a chair, in a talk show studio, in a room surrounded by white people.
Okay.
And he's just going back and forth with them, and they're grilling him on not going to Vietnam. They're grilling him on his comments about the white devil, and
wow.
they're grilling him on his affiliation with Malcolm X and Nation of Islam. And they're just grilling him on this and that. And he is just standing up to every single one of them, just talking every single one down. Okay, the YouTube title is hold on here. Actually, wait a minute.
Who was that guy in the 80s who
damn it,
who had
Hate
that conservative talk show on TV?
Morton Downey Jr.?
That's right. Was it a Morton Downey Jr. episode?
No, this was before Morton Downey's time.
Wow.
I don't know who the hell was hosting it, but I mean, it was incredible. The way that he was willing to stand up to anyone and look his detractors in the eye and tell them what he believed to be the truth. And that was something that I came to admire. But I also came to admire the trash-talking aspect of him, too. And, again, something that I always got a kick out of and something that I began to borrow from as I got older. And it's just the way to make yourself a personality out there, to have some fun. It's more fun. Like, I think for anyone out there who takes a look at, say, like someone like Richard Sherman or you know, maybe I'm trying to think who's a big NBA trash talker right now. I don't know. They're all escaping
Draymond
me.
Green.
Draymond Green's a good trash talker. There you go. You know, and even some of the NHL, even though good trash talking exists, the NHL tries to pretend like it doesn't happen.
Well, it's all in different European languages, so you can't understand what they're saying.
They try to sterilize all their players, so you never actually get any opinion or entertainment value out of them. It's worked out great for the NHL so far. Sport's going real good in the U.S., but. I mean, it makes them more charismatic, more entertaining, more exciting. It makes things less boring, and also it also speaks to you in a sense that these are real people. And I've heard a lot of folks recently kind of draw the line between Ali and, say, someone with more talent but less charisma, and Alex Rodriguez or Derek Jeter, guys who everything they did
quietly.
They did
with class, except for A-Rod.
Well,
and
I wouldn't even say
thing.
with class. It was like breaking. It was like another. It was a dichotomy where you had Ali building up his brand, building up his charisma, building up his character, his machismo, and using that to develop his own brand because he felt powerful enough. Where you have people like Jeter, A-Rod, Tiger Woods,
Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan to a lesser extent because it's not like he's got Nike slapped all over him. But
you don't remember the Sprite commercials between Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant in the early '90s, or maybe it was the mid '90s. No, I see what you're saying.
I don't, but I mean, you get that they were all manicured,
right?
And they all
carefully crafted. I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying. I thought you were talking about just guys who they had good careers, but they didn't really push themselves as personalities. I see you're saying what they're trying to do is push themselves as like. Sports heroes, role models for kids.
Yes, but I would have much rather, and I think really, if people were honest with themselves, I think more folks would much rather it be done like Muhammad Ali, someone who stands up for what they believe in. That's why I feel bad for LeBron, because LeBron has tried in the past. He tried during the whole Trayvon Martin thing. He tried wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt out onto the court for warm-up one day. I mean, LeBron has tried.
Yeah.
And when he's tried, I think he's had a minority of folks really shoot him down.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of throws him back into that carefully crafted shell that, Nike and Gatorade have on him.
Right. Well, and at least speaking
or
to
Powerade, excuse me. He's now a Gatorade.
Speaking to the Muhammad Ali versus Derek Jeter dichotomy, I'm always skeptical of the guy that everybody likes, and Jeter's a guy that everybody likes.
Russell Wilson is another one, where you just don't believe there's much there. Like see him,
you think that in public he's smiling for the camera, and behind the scenes, he has his own dressing room, and he's throwing glasses at his assistants.
I mean, it's like you see him, he's in a commercial, sitting with his feet dipped in the pool listening to Macklemore.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, man, you got cred.
Right.
You're real cool. We all want to be like you.
Well, I've always said this, and we got to hit a break. I've always said this. I have a lot of respect for the guy who's a decent guy who tries to come off like an asshole so people don't take advantage of him, than the asshole who tries to come off like a good guy.
Give me a real human being, and that's what Ali always was. He was always a real human being, and that in part gave him the courage to stand up and be a hero, and that's why he really will be missed.
Let's turn the radio off on the internet.
Less rock, more talk. Turn the radio off.
Become a fan at peoplehatemypodcast.com. Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
I was off-roading in the backcountry.
Oh, not surprising. You've got your home. Bears have theirs.
Yeah, but see, this wasn't just any bear. This bear was wearing jeans and a hat, as in Smokey Bear.
Jeans and a hat. That's definitely Smokey. What exactly did he have to say?
Well, I was about to start up my ATV on a trail near a bunch of dry brush.
Oh, I can guess where this is going.
Right. Smokey told me that was dangerous because ATVs give off sparks, and one spark can start a wildfire.
That's true. Did you know that 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans? That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Wow, no kidding?
I'm a forest ranger. We never kid.
Sorry.
that was a joke.
Oh.
Get your Smokey on. If you see someone in danger of starting a wildfire, step in and make a difference, because 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Switch off the radio. Turn off the radio. Shut down your radio system.
We'll do it live!
What?
I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Turn the radio off. There you go. I'm drunk.
All right, so I'm going to have to do my best to stay calm during this next segment because, Kyle, I think we've had this discussion off the air where I say when I get fired up on something, I go on rants and I have a hard time keeping my thoughts together and making coherent sentences like that one right there. And I'm running on a long day with very little sleep, so I really have to concentrate. But I have to be honest. I haven't heard a whole lot about this next story until after a verdict was reached and a sentence was handed down. I'm talking about Brock Turner, this former swimmer at Stanford University, clean-cut, all-American-looking kid. He was found guilty of rape and sexual assault, and I actually kind of got into the story backwards because the first thing I read was his victim's statement that she read in the courtroom. And I guess this is an unorthodox approach, but her statement was a 12-page letter addressed to her rapist himself. And it's very well written, and it's very detailed, and she does a good job of putting you in her headspace. What happened, according to her letter, and just about every witness that was brought into court, was that this young woman, who's been unidentified, rightly so, she went out to a party with her sister in the winter of 2015 around Stanford University. Next thing she knows, she wakes up in a hospital on a gurney. Her clothes are ripped. She has pine needles in her hair. And the nurse says that she was sexually assaulted. And she couldn't remember anything because she was blackout drunk. And keep that in mind because later on this comes into play in a very infuriating way. She was blackout drunk, so she doesn't remember what happened. She found out what happened to her by reading it in the newspaper. And what happened on this night, according to witnesses, was there was these two students from Sweden. They were on a hike or on a bike ride on a desolate trail around the campus of Stanford University. And they pull up to some dumpsters. I don't know if this was at the beginning of the trail behind some businesses or if there was on a nature trail. But they come up to a dumpster, and it looks like there is a couple having sex. So at first these guys kind of laugh, thinking that they caught a couple in the mood. When all of a sudden they realized that the woman on the ground was not moving. So what these two Swedish guys did is they chased the man who was on top of the woman down. They pinned him on the ground, and they called 911, and he got arrested.
Yeah, which it's total hero move.
And you know what? that's shocking nowadays because there's so few people who would be willing to do that.
True. There are people who have more than a few people, as we found out, who have videotaped it for their own use.
Right, and for their Snapchat stories or whatever sick amusement they're going to get from it.
Yeah, before they've stepped in to help.
So this letter goes on to talk about her being victimized on this night. And then victimized over and over the course of the next year as the trial. She's in the hospital, right? And she's being photographed and poked and prodded in places where she was just violated. And, of course, the hospital has to do this.
Right.
But it's not pleasant, and it feels like she's being exploited all over again. Then she reads about her attack in the newspaper, victimizing her all over again. But the press has to write what happened. And then... Of course, our legal system is innocent until proven guilty. So the defense attorney's job is to cast a shadow of the doubt on this young lady's story. And, of course, they grilled her, asking all these personal questions about her sex life as if the fact that she has consensual sex means that she consents to any sex, even if she's unconscious. Right. And there was not one shred of evidence that backed up this guy's story, which his story said he thought it was consensual. He didn't know she was unconscious. And the defense's main argument was, get this, Kyle. Well, if she was passed out, how does she know she didn't consent? What? So there was three charges of sexual assault, right? All 12 jurors found this Brock Turner guilty. So he was found guilty 36 times over. He was facing 10 years in jail. The prosecutor suggested 6 years in jail. The judge gave him 6 months in jail. And maybe it was his father's plea saying, let's not let 20 minutes of a bad decision ruin the rest of his life, as if these 20 minutes didn't ruin this young lady's life, as if this was like an isolated incident.
Or there's nothing else that you could do to warrant jail time within 20 minutes. Like if you commit murder,
right? If
it's a second over 20 minutes,
right,
well, then we got to put you away.
Well,
but if it's under 20 minutes,
right,
you're fine.
He didn't suffer that much. It was just 20 minutes. And then the judge said, well, 10 years in jail will be too hard on the kid. Okay. Well, being sexually assaulted behind a dumpster while you're unconscious, that's not going to be tough on the victim?
Yeah, it's probably going to haunt her for the rest of her life, on top of what publicity that this is drawn. And I'm sure I can't get into her head. I hope that she's trying to draw whatever empowerment she can from it. But imagine how she's having to relive this right now, and how it's just sticking with her, and how it's in the news, and she can't really get away from it. And this is just her best effort to defend herself.
Right.
It's an abhorrent story, and you have to think clean-cut white kid with potential Olympic hopes as a swimmer at a prestigious school like Stanford.
I better not see that kid in the Olympics.
Well, you have to think that there was some influence at work.
Absolutely.
That there was some privilege at work here, and that's why he got such a reduced sentence. And it really is disgraceful. 6 months.
Right, 6 months and all right, now you behave yourself now, you hear?
Are you kidding me? 6 months that's nothing.
Well, this is a very dangerous and public precedent to set and message to send. Because look, Kyle, if I'm a victim of sexual assault and I see all this, I see how this girl's life has been all about this attack for a year and the guy only gets 6 months. There's no way in hell I'm coming forward. Do you know why? Because I want to put this behind me, and I don't want to have to relive this over and over and over. So what this is going to do, this is going to keep a lot of victims. This is going to keep a lot of victims from speaking up, and it's going to allow a lot of dirtbags to get away with everything.
Rape culture at work is what it is, and I go back, and I brought this up on the show a few times before, and as a hockey fan and somebody who was a fan of this player, it really hit closely to me, was the Patrick Kane story.
Right.
And to this day, we still don't really know because it didn't go to trial, but there was evidence. There was a rape kit. There was a rape kit with his DNA. I mean, there were corroborated stories. I mean, there sounded like there was enough to bring it to trial.
Right.
Ultimately, she dropped it after her mom pulled that weird frame-up job where she tried to make it look like evidence was tampered with.
Yeah.
And that pretty much ruined her case. I have to think, though, that in that short time leading up to that really poorly thought-out mistake that her mother made, that she faced so much scrutiny, including the local Buffalo newspaper. The name escapes me right now, but releasing her name. I mean, her name popped up on Facebook. Her name popped up everywhere, and she was trying to live her life the best she could, and she wasn't allowed to. So she just said, fuck it, I'm dropping this case. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just want to move on. And then all of a sudden you got all these neckbeard trolls coming out of the woodwork.
See, she was just trying to get a payday.
And she knew she didn't get a payday, so she crawled back into her slut cave.
Well, and it's funny, Kyle, because normally when we're talking about these sexual assault cases where the accused gets off easy or it's dropped against them, you know, the issue is, okay, it's one person's word against someone else's word, and the jury didn't find him guilty because there was a doubt cast on it. This guy was found guilty.
I know.
By 12 jurors, and he still got 6 months. And if I have a daughter, and I hate playing this "what do you tell your kids" card, but if I have a daughter, I don't know what to tell her. You know what I say? Here's some mace. When in doubt, use it. Because the system didn't fail just this young woman. It failed. It failed. What it's designed to do, it did not do. So you know what I'm going to say? If I have a woman in my life that she's going off to college or somewhere where there's a bunch of danger and a bunch of alcohol and people I don't trust, here's some mace, use it. And you know what? I wouldn't even leave my room, because even if you're the victim, people are going to act like you're the aggressor.
No, it doesn't even take alcohol. It can happen anywhere, and that's a danger that, as men, we don't have to experience that constantly looking over our shoulder when we're walking down the street the way women do. It varies. And I would say I believe you. That's what I would say. Whatever happens, I trust you and I believe you, and I'll have your support.
Right.
And that's what I would say as a parent to my daughter.
Right.
Before, if I'm to give her this talk,
yeah,
that would be my words to
yeah.
her. I trust you. I support you. I'll believe you. And if anything bad happens to you, I will do whatever I can to help you get justice.
Right.
That's all you can say. I'm not in the business of telling a woman what to wear.
Right.
I can suggest or how much to drink, because I don't really think. Again, it's just I saw a nice pie chart where what causes rape.
Right.
And it was a bunch of different theories in different colors, and the whole chart was in red.
And it just said rapist.
It just said rape. Yes.
Right.
Just said rapist. That's
right.
what causes rape. I can't say it's anything else. And so you could say, hey, maybe take a self-defense course.
Right.
Maybe
take this mace. I'm serious with the mace. What?
Give some advice for staying with your lady friends. Make sure your drinks aren't left unattended.
Right.
That's and above all, we'll believe you.
Right.
That's the best advice I can give. And unfortunately, that's the way this goes. And
right.
I think right after a lot of folks we're starting to get some hope as far as breaking down kind of the rape culture surrounding university athletics and college campuses. we had the whole Baylor thing where, Art Briles got canned and Ken Starr got his nuts fried, thankfully.
Yeah.
Because this guy who apparently was so appalled by a consensual
blowjob in the Oval Office.
Right.
Freudian slip.
Yeah, right. That was so offensive.
Right.
But, sexual assault. Oh, we'll just sweep that under the rug because our football team's real good.
Well, that oral sex in the Oval Office, it wasn't messing with fundraising. So he could go against it.
I mean, it's...
so
right after we see the whole fella from Baylor where finally real consequences were brought up in the face of athletic success on campus, when this happens, it feels like it sets everything back again.
But it's so frustrating, Kyle, because, the Duke lacrosse thing, it was one person's word against another person's word, and it turned out to be a false accusation. But see, ever since the Duke lacrosse thing, people have been giving the accused the benefit of the doubt, right? This isn't even a Jameis Winston thing where there's some ambiguity there and there was a cover-up by the school. This was a no-doubter. In fact, as far as I know, Stanford did nothing to stand in the way of this investigation. The prosecution did their job. Everyone did their job except for this dirtbag judge, Aaron Persky. And that's what's so frustrating. It's like, I'm trying to think. It's like, I don't want to make a sports metaphor here, but it's all I can think about. It's like having the football at the 1-yard line, and everyone else is at the opposite end of the field. And all you have to do is not fumble. And this judge not only fumbles the ball, he turns to the other team and punts it back to him.
All he had to do was hand it off to Marshawn Lynch.
That's all. Beast mode. Beast mode would have given that SOB 6 years in jail.
Hell yeah, he would have.
It's just, Kyle, I can always almost even, but right now I can't even. It's turn the radio off on the internet.
Turn the radio off. With Mike Parsons.
No drug dealers living next to me. Pretty good deal.
Kyle Bauer.
Yeah.
People hate my podcast.com.
It's sometime in the future. The ultimate challenge. Crossfire. Crossfire. You get caught. Crossfire. Crossfire. You get caught. Crossfire. 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 You'll get caught up in it.
What is Jack?
Jack is great stuff. Oozy. Jack is stretchy.
You can pull it. Make Jack sounds.
How rude.
Suck it up and squirt it up with a Gak Vac. Pump it up and blow it up with a Gak Inflator.
Well, I never.
Nickelodeon Gak comes in different colors, sizes, and playsets, each sold separately. Coming soon from Mattel.
Disgusting.
If they were strippers at Deja Vu, they'd be the three ugly ones.
Turn the radio off.
Okay, so perhaps that old sweeper we should get rid of.
Which one is that? Is that a Tap Detroit one? Is that a Woodward
one? No,
Woodward one or
no? It's the
one from my basement.
If they were strippers at Deja Vu, they'd be the three ugly ones. Because I was about to go on a rant about how you and I were accused of being racist and sexist earlier on, and
that's not good.
No, that doesn't help our case.
That's not good.
Well,
I mean, but here's the thing, though. Anyone could say
I could be. You know what? I'm talking about us being strippers, male strippers, and we're not conforming to gender stereotypes.
There's always ugly ones too. You can't say that in a room that there's not ugly ones.
Well, there used to be a billboard a long time ago. I used to always see it driving back from Jackson in my grandma's house. Deja Vu. 23 beautiful strippers and 3 ugly ones. That's where I got the idea.
I don't know. For some reason, it's different when it's put in that context.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not.
I'm not helping. I'm not helping at all. I'm actually making it worse.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get off to a good start
Well,
there.
let's talk about mild sexism first here, Kyle. And I'm talking about the ridiculousness that has been the public reaction to a movie that hasn't even come out yet, Ghostbusters 3. Of course, you know, Ghostbusters 3, the new take on Ghostbusters 3 is that it'll be 4 female Ghostbusters. And both sides, both extremes of the spectrum are being ridiculous about it. Number one, you've got a bunch of neckbeards who are saying, I'm not going to see it. This is ruining my childhood with these chicks busting ghosts. And then I saw a headline that said that all self-respecting feminists need to go see Ghostbusters 3. And it's like, look, everybody, okay, it's a movie that's coming out, okay? Number one, if you're over the age of 20 talking about how things ruin your childhood, a reboot of a movie from your childhood is not ruining your childhood. What I always say is, you know what ruined your childhood? Turning 20.
Yeah.
That's what ruined it, okay? It's not coming back.
No, but it's always going to be there, though. That's the thing that's what makes it such a lame excuse, is that even if I was a raging sexist moron, thinking, how could a bunch of these chicks catch Slimer at the hotel?
Right.
Yeah.
Slimer don't respect no woman.
Yeah,
you think Lord Vigo would listen to some lady with positive slime? He probably thinks she was on her period.
Yeah, but it's yeah, but it doesn't affect me in any way. It's completely irrelevant because Ghostbusters 1 and 2 is still there. I still remember playing with my Proton Pack as a kid.
Right, they're not
my
burning
Ghostbusters figurine.
They're not burning all copies of the original. If the third one stinks, you can still enjoy the originals.
If anything should have ruined your childhood, it was the real Ghostbusters cartoon and the fact that none of them looked like their movie characters.
Right.
Like, Egon was some, 7-foot-tall blonde dude.
Right.
What was that about?
Right.
He had a pompadour.
Peter Venkman was the black one. Well, actually, I'm not sure about that.
No, he wasn't, but still, the point is that's so ridiculous, that is so dumb, and that is just such blatant and idiotic sexism. If it's not a good movie, it's because it's not a good movie, not because they have 3 women playing the roles of Ghostbusters. 4 women, excuse me. I did the classic Ghostbusters slip-up where you forget about the black one.
About Winston? Maybe we are sexist racists.
We are. I think subliminally. I've always vouched for Winston, though. Yeah. It's really pissed because especially
check your privilege at the basement stairs, Kyle.
Because especially after oh my goodness, how am I forgetting his name? Who played Egon? Harold Ramis died. There was that really sappy memorial cartoon but it was just like Ray Stantz and Peter Venkman putting Egon under the containment unit.
Oh, and no Winston.
Yeah,
huh?
And no Winston.
No one calls
Winston on the DVD cover.
You know why? Because they're pissed Eddie Murphy wasn't Winston. That's why. They wrote Winston for Eddie Murphy, and poor Ernie Hudson comes along, and he gets the shaft.
I was going to say poor Ernie Hudson, but then Ernie Hudson said that Ghostbusters won't be good with women as Ghostbusters.
Oh. Well, here's my game plan, Kyle, okay? And I respect people who don't want to see it just because they don't have a genuine interest. But it's these men children who are complaining about their childhoods being ruined, which I have no respect for. This is my game plan for Ghostbusters 3. Ready, Kyle? I'll go see it. If I like it, good. If I don't, oh well.
Yeah, and also to your point, I saw that one headline. I haven't read the actual article yet, so I might be commenting on it prematurely, but I did see it come across my feed, just the headline. I didn't have time to read it, and our buddy Aaron Foley, local author and freelance journalist.
He's actually the editor of Black Magazine now.
Yep, BLAC, in case you're looking for it on newsstands.
Yep.
He noted on Twitter, isn't part of feminism not telling other women what to do?
Right. It's like, look, okay, it's an interesting take on an old favorite, but I wouldn't say that it's a big victory for feminism nor a big defeat for masculinity. It's just something different.
It's just a movie.
It's just a movie. Okay, so have we separated ourselves from that sweeper with enough fun and frivolity? Because I want to talk about how you and I were accused of being sexist racists.
I think you're being defensive as fuck, Mike.
Yeah, well, I always am. I always have a cup on because I don't want my privilege to get hit in the privilege. So I had no plans on talking about this whole Cincinnati Zoo gorilla shooting thing because it's just old news, and it happened last week, and people are sick of hearing about it. But a friend of ours from college posted a status trying to draw a parallel between the Stanford swimmer rape that we talked about last segment and racism when it comes to the backlash against the parents who lost sight of their 4-year-old child. I think they were 4 years old. 4-year-old child at Cincinnati Zoo. The child got into the gorilla exhibit. The gorilla started dragging the child around, and there was some debate whether he was trying to help or hurt the child. To me, it looked like he was trying to help the child, but he's also a 400-pound gorilla.
And we have no way of knowing really what was going on in Ramby's head.
Right. So the zookeepers did what they had to do. They shot the gorilla. And there's a lot of people angry the gorilla was shot. I don't think the majority of people who are angry about this are mad that the gorilla was shot because they knew that there was a human life at stake, okay? The zookeepers did what they had to do. Yeah. I think a lot of people are upset that this mother was not supervising her child and this gorilla had to die because the gorilla went gorilla.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe both parents were on the scene.
Oh.
But it's the mother has been taking the brunt of the blame, and I think that the parallel that the whole point between the Stanford Rapist and the parents of this child that they were trying to draw was the media backlash. You see white privilege at work for the swimmer, for the Stanford Rapist, who only gets 6 months in jail. But I didn't really see him getting mainstream support. I mean, aside from his dad, maybe there are some weirdos out there defending him and saying that, the 20 minutes
whatever the hell
wasn't
that
worth
means.
the 6 months or whatever the hell the dumbass dad was trying to say. And then saying, meanwhile, we have 2 black parents and a black child, and all the blame is being put on them.
Right.
They're being persecuted in public opinion, and they're being unfairly treated and unfairly blamed for this. So you're seeing a black family being put through the ringer for something that really wasn't their fault, where you're seeing direct action and white privilege being taken in favor of this affluent white kid who goes to Stanford.
I can see the point they're trying to make, but the one thing that I don't subscribe to is pointing at one person who did something worse and thinking it exonerates somebody else. Just because this was a travesty out in California where this spoiled ass white kid got off with a slap on the wrist for something he should have gone to jail for a decade. Just because that happened doesn't make the parents in Cincinnati any less negligent. And I have to say, Kyle, I think
the parallels to me are bizarre. I've done my best to think about it as far as public reaction goes, but I mean, I don't think there are too many people out there who are on the side of the Stanford Rapist.
No.
I never understood that. And to the point, first, I don't want to draw the parallels between the two anymore because I think it's in my mind, easily dismissed. Now, the whole idea that race is the only reason why we're seeing so much backlash and scorn towards this mother, I think that's idiotic in itself. And I've never been And, I mean, have I seen some people post some racist things?
Right.
Has there been some racist reporting in this? Yes, there has, like bringing up the father's criminal history.
Right. What does that have to do with anything?
Has zero to do with it. And I don't think they should be subject to threats
right.
or harassment from anybody for this either. But it is what it is.
Right.
They lost their kid. Their kid fell into a gorilla pit. And if you name places where the places I would least want my kid to fall in, Gorilla Pit is like top 5.
Right.
That's pretty bad.
Well, here's the thing. The original cell phone video, you couldn't tell if that kid was black or white. And there was a lot of scorn and backlash.
I didn't know if the kid. I didn't know that it was a black family and the kid was black until I think 2 or 3 days until after it happened.
Right.
And my first reaction was, it really sucks for that gorilla that kid got in there.
Right.
Because, I mean, at that point, the gorilla's collateral damage.
And I love all these people acting like, oh, who hasn't dropped their kid into a gorilla pit? Those who haven't dropped their kid into the cage of a dangerous animal, be the first one to cast the first stone.
Yeah.
It's like,
what makes you such a great parent with such great parenting
Right.
advice? I wouldn't let my kid crawl into a gorilla pit.
You know how I know that these parents did a bad job? Because gorillas and zoos have been around forever, and this is the first time it's happened. And yes, maybe you could find a magazine clipping or two where this has happened a time or two before, but it barely ever happens. And for it to happen, someone has to screw up very badly.
An endangered and beloved zoo animal to have to be shot and killed to save your child because you messed up that bad that your child is now in a position.
Right.
Think about how catastrophic that is. These zoo animals aren't cheap.
Right.
I mean, to put a monetary value on this, we're talking about at least 6 figures, maybe even 7.
Right.
And
like we said, plus they're innocent. I mean, these animals are innocent. That gorilla was doing what a gorilla would do if they saw an injured child.
Yeah, that gorilla had no idea what was going on.
Right.
And all these theories as to it's going to protect it, it's going to hurt it, I don't know.
Right.
And you don't know either. The point is that gorilla didn't know a bullet was going to come flying into its head either.
Right.
But that gorilla had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Again, watch your damn kids. Mike, it's funny because I've had somebody say it to me, well, you don't know what it's like to be a mother. You're being sexist because you don't know what it's like to be a mother. Okay, well, first, the dad has not received as much scorn, and charges weren't possibly pressed to him.
Which there have been no charges brought. They decided not. Which I think that's fine. I don't know the laws.
But they investigated it. They still investigated the family. But listen,
there should have been an investigation
exactly.
on both parents.
I'll tell you this much, though. I may not be a mother. I may not be a dad. I may not even have nannied or babysat for little kids before at the zoo. So you might say to me, Kyle, what the hell, or who the hell are you to say about watching a 4-year-old at the zoo? I, for my job, happen to take out as many as 8 special needs people at a time, some of them with the mental development of a 4-year-old, to the zoo. And sometimes it's 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, and I have a wheelchair with me. I have lunches to attend. And you know what? I'm constantly scanning. I'm constantly counting. I am counting once a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And how many have you lost to a gorilla pit?
0.
Oh.
And even
that's because that's your male privilege.
And even in instances where I have a wheelchair, where I have a client who's wheelchair bound with me, or whatever the case, I always make sure to keep them out of situations of harm like that.
Right. Well, and here's the bottom line. Look, like I said, I'm fine with no charges being brought against them. Okay, and. Yes, you know what? This could be an isolated incident. They could be great parents.
They absolutely could be, but still.
But an investigation, when something like this happens, an investigation has to be done. And I think, if nothing else, they are deserving of some scorn. Not death threats, but they should be put on blast a little bit. And
it's not like if you lost your kid for a minute and you find him at the vending machine, which that I'm sure does happen.
Right.
That's where the difference is. They fell into a gorilla pit.
Right.
And a gorilla had to be killed because your kid fell into a gorilla pit. That's a very serious thing.
Right. And you know what? Yes.
That's not just something you say, oh, well, time to move on.
Right. We have 60 seconds left. But what I want to say is yes. You know, anytime something like this happens, there are racist narratives because there's racists out there who they're holding in racial epithets like a sneeze, and they can't wait to justify it. But I think the overall narrative is not racially motivated nor misogynistic.
No, and I agree with that. Yes, there have been tinges of it here and there, but I think overall you can't see that as a main point of criticism for these people. They messed up.
We are out of time. People at mypodcast.com. Thanks for listening, Paul. Bye.